Hey class, welcome to another exciting day of geography. Um, I'm actually keeping my camera off today because I have a giant zit on my face and it's pretty bad. So, we're just gonna go through and look at the slides together. Yeah. So today we're looking at Southeast Asia. There are 11 countries in Southeast Asia. We have Brunei, Burma or Myanmar, Cambodia, Timor, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Southeast Asia is the region between China, India, Australia, and the Pacific Ocean. Southeast Asia includes countries with political boundaries, creating many shapes and sizes. The political borders were created through a combination of factors, including natural features, traditional tribal distinctions, colonial claims, and political agreements. I'm going to look at some of those today. We're going to split Southeast Asia into two kind of sections. The first is the mainland or the Indochina Peninsula. So this is the area where, so it's connected to India and China, right? It's on like the main Asian continent and extends south into what's been called the Indochina Peninsula. Or Indochina. That name was given to it by France when France was colonizing that. Well, they had colonies there. This mainland region consists of the countries of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Myanmar. This region has been influenced historically by India and China. And the reason why the Myanmar and the Burma are coming up is because it's actually kind of controversial. It's been called Burma for a really long time, but some countries don't recognize like the new name, the Myanmar. And there's a couple different reasons for that. With like it's also the name of like a tribe there or something weird like that. But anyway, so mainland China versus the islands. So this is a region consisting of the islands of Southeast Asia. Right, so we have Brunei, East Timor, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Singapore. So they're surrounded by water, and we have, right, these countries. So here's a map to kind of visualize this a little bit better. So we have our mainland countries up here, right? They're connected to China, mainland of the continent. And then down here we have our island region or insular region. So we have Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, East Timor, right? So we have lots of island countries in this area. The physical geography, so most of Southeast Asia is considered tropical. Lots of rain, lots of water. There's lots of islands and peninsulas. They're right next to the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and there's lots of tectonic activity in that part of the world. So with our Indochina and Malay Peninsula, so the Indochina Peninsula, right, is that mainland kind of area over here. So like Vietnam is our Indochina Peninsula, right, goes along the edge. So in this area there are over 20,000 islands. Only 6,000 of those islands are named, and only 1,000 of those named islands are permanently settled. East Timor was previously part of Indonesia, but they gained their independence in 1999, and they've been a United Nations recognized country since 2002. Singapore, it's really small. It's actually one large and 50 small islands around it, but they're like super, super small islands. And half of the islands in this area are actually uninhabited, so Yeah. This area also has lots of volcanoes. It's part of the Ring of Fire that goes around the Pacific Plate, the tectonic plate. So we have lots of volcanoes in this area. This is a map showing, I believe, the active ones. So lots of volcanic activity. That can be a really big deal because when a volcano erupts, or there's lots of volcanic activity, you often get like earthquakes, and earthquakes can cause tsunamis. So lots of that goes on in this area. One major eruption in history that I wanted to talk about was Krakatoa. So Krakatoa erupted in 1883, and it is the loudest sound recorded over the longest distance. So if you see up here, I have this little map. This is a map of before the 1883 eruption. The dotted line is how big the island was, and the eruption was so powerful it blew up 2/3 of the island. This area is actually still an active volcano. In 2018, it erupted and caused like an underwater landslide essentially, which caused a tsunami in 2018 that it killed a lot of people in Indonesia. In 1883 though, so when it blew up like a bunch of the island, at least 36,000 people died and many more thousands were injured. And it's mostly from the tsunamis that followed the explosion. There was a British Navy ship that was, I think it's like 100 kilometers away, and half of the crew's eardrums burst from the how loud the noise was. I added a bunch of like more information in the additional resources on the page for today. So if you're interested in volcanic eruptions and how they recorded the noise and stuff like that, there's lots of that out there. So Krakatoa, still there. Causing stuff. Like I said, so our major natural disasters, we're going to see lots of earthquakes in these areas, tsunamis, and volcanoes. Southeast Asia has lots of colonial impact. So this is a map of colonies in Southeast Asia in 1895. So take note, that's not really that long ago in like the broad scheme of history things. So we see, so there's British, Dutch, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and what's now Thailand, or Siam at that point in time, actually remained independent. So the king actually worked out, the king of Thailand, the king of Siam, right, worked out a deal with the British and the French and was like, dude, the British and the French, you guys have a long history, keep us out of it, kind of a thing. And so they kept it as kind of like a buffer zone, which is really interesting. But East Timor, so this was a former Portuguese colony. It's on the south end kind of Indonesia, and it's the most recent colony to gain their independence. Timor is an island just north of Australia. The western portion is claimed by Indonesia, so on the eastern side, right now they're their own country, but they split off in 1999, and then in 2002 they were recognized by the United Nations as being their own country, so they're officially like their own country. And they've, since 2002, have been negotiating offshore boundaries, like the boundaries of the water around their country, for like drilling for oil and natural gas. Population of Southeast Asia, there are more than 600 million people. Okay, 600 million people. More than that, right? More than half of the population lives on the islands of Indonesia and the Philippines. The island of Java in Indonesia is one of the most densely populated places on Earth. More than half of the 245 million people who live in Indonesia live on the island of Java, which is kind of crazy. So 245 million people, I mean, that's a lot of people. For reference, Utah has like 3 million people. So this is a map. In the additional resources, I also added my sources for this map, and they actually have like lots of other really cool ones that show like different statistics and demographics. So this one's population density. So that's how many people live in an area per square kilometer. So the darker the color, the more people who live there. So if we look, if you guys remember from last time, the Ganges River goes right up by the Himalayas, right? That's like the densest part of India. That's where most people live. Down here, we have the island of Java, right? Here's it closer. And that's where most people live in Indonesia. Oh. Cool. All right. I kept it a little bit short. So I wanted to make sure you guys saw this stuff. So the warm up for today is a video about India and Pakistan's border, and it's a really fascinating video. I'm only requiring you guys to watch the first 5 minutes and 30 seconds of the video, but I'd highly recommend watching the whole thing because it's really interesting, and then you'll answer some questions about that, right? And then make sure that you get some notes, right? Look at those slides, and then your assignment for today. You're going to, for the first couple questions, you're going to look at this map and then answer the question, right? So it goes along with the slides a little bit, but then there's also some skills, right? Being able to look at a map and understand what's going on. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me so I can help you out. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.